Commander Zexthul had conquered 47 worlds. None had prepared him for what flickered across his ship's main screen. The small blue planet below looked peaceful. White clouds drifted over green continents and blue oceans. Intelligence. Reports called it Earth, home to a species called humans. The reports said humans were primitive, still using chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Easy prey for the Kethmar Empire. "Sir," his lieutenant hissed through sharp teeth, "we're detecting massive electromagnetic signatures across the planet's surface." Zexthul's 4 eyes narrowed. "Weapons systems? Unknown. The patterns are strange." On the tactical display, thousands of red dots pulsed across Earth's continents. Each dot represented energy signatures unlike anything in the Empire's database. They weren't pointing toward space, ready to defend against invasion. Instead, they pointed at each other. "These humans," the lieutenant whispered, "they're fighting themselves." Zexthul had seen species destroy themselves before. Civil wars that made conquest unnecessary. Just wait for the survivors to surrender. But this was different. Earth showed no signs of total destruction. Cities blazed with light. Commerce flowed between nations even as weapons fired between others. "How long have they been at war?" Zexthul asked. The intelligence officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "Sir, according to our historical scans, always." "Always?" "Every century, every decade, every year we can detect. Somewhere on this planet, humans are fighting other humans. But they never stop building, never stop growing, never stop advancing." Zexthul studied the data streams. Humans fought with stone clubs while building monuments. They battled with bronze swords while creating art. They killed with gunpowder while reaching for the stars. What kind of species perfected warfare and civilization at the same time? "Launch the observation pods," Zexthul commanded. "I want to see these creatures up close before we decide how to proceed." 3 metallic spheres dropped toward Earth's atmosphere. They would record everything: human tactics, technology, weaknesses, standard procedure before any invasion. But as the pods transmitted their first images back to the ship, Zexthul felt something he'd never experienced in 47 conquests. Uncertainty. The first pod showed human soldiers crawling through mud, faces streaked with dirt and blood, yet still advancing under heavy fire. The second revealed massive machines of war rolling across landscapes, while humans inside sang battle songs. The third displayed fighter aircraft dancing through the sky, in patterns too complex for their simple technology to achieve. These weren't just warriors. They were something else entirely. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." "Impossible. Our pods are cloaked." "The message isn't directed at the pods, sir. It's directed at us." Zexthul's blood chilled. "Put it through." The screen flickered. A human face appeared. Scarred. Weathered. With eyes that had seen too much death. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of mountains. "Welcome to Earth, Kethmar Empire. We know you're watching. We know what you're planning. But before you make your choice, we have something to show you." The transmission cut to black. In the silence that followed, every alien on the bridge understood they were no longer the hunters. They had become the observed. The human transmission resumed 12 hours later. This time, multiple faces filled the screen, different colors, different features, but all bearing the same expression of grim determination. "I am General Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Council," the first human said. "These are General Mahmoud al-Rashid, General Victoria Okafor, and General Ivan Petrov. We speak for our entire species today." Zexthul's tactical officer leaned close. "Sir, our scans show these humans were killing each other just days ago. Now they stand together?" the general continued. "You've been watching our wars. Good. We want you to understand what you're considering fighting, but words won't show you what you need to see. We're going to demonstrate." The screen shifted to an aerial view of a massive desert valley. 2 armies faced each other across the sand, thousands of human soldiers with their primitive weapons and vehicles. "This is the proving ground," General Chen explained. "For the next 72 hours, Blue Force will attempt to take Red Force's position. Red Force will defend. Both sides will fight as if their lives depend on it, because they do. The losing side's nations will surrender their water rights for the next decade. Zexthul watched in fascination. Even facing an alien invasion, humans were still fighting each other. How could such a divided species threaten the Empire? The battle began at dawn. Blue Force attacked with conventional tactics. Tanks in formation, infantry behind cover, aircraft providing support. Red Force defended with textbook precision. For the first hour, it looked like any battle the Empire had observed. Then something changed. When Blue Force's main assault failed, they didn't retreat or regroup. Individual soldiers began acting independently, finding gaps in Red Force's defense that their commanders hadn't seen. A tank crew abandoned their burning vehicle but used its wreckage as cover to spot targets for artillery. Infantry squads split apart and reformed in new configurations without orders. "They're adapting," Zexthul's lieutenant whispered. "In real time. Without central coordination." Red Force responded by abandoning their prepared positions entirely. They melted into the landscape, turning every sand dune and rock formation into a potential threat. Supply convoys became mobile fortresses. Medical units became decoy targets that drew attackers into killing fields. By the second day, both sides had reinvented their entire approach to warfare. Blue Force built weapons from battlefield debris. Red Force turned their communications equipment into electronic warfare systems. Soldiers on both sides began using tactics that weren't in any military manual, because they were inventing them as they fought. "How are they doing this?" the tactical officer demanded. "Their technology is centuries behind ours, but their innovation rate is impossible." Zexthul studied the biometric readings from the observation pods. Human heart rates stayed elevated far beyond what should have been survivable. Their brain activity showed patterns unlike any species in the Empire's database. Most disturbing of all, their performance improved as conditions became more desperate. On the third day, both armies were unrecognizable from what they'd been at the start. Blue Force had somehow turned sand into defensive barriers using chemical reactions their equipment shouldn't have been capable of producing. Red Force had built a communications network from spare parts that confused even the Empire's analysis computers. And through it all, soldiers from both sides helped wounded enemies, shared water during ceasefires, and maintained honor codes that seemed to make no logical sense. When the exercise ended, both armies stood and saluted each other before embracing like brothers. General Chen reappeared on screen. Her uniform was now dusty and torn. She had fought alongside her soldiers. "We've shown you our warfare," she said. "Now let us show you what we've learned from 10,000 years of fighting each other." The transmission cut again, but this time, Zexthul knew the silence was temporary. The real demonstration was about to begin. The human transmission returned with an image that made Zexthul's 4 hearts skip. Earth's surface from orbit, but not as his ship saw it now. This image came from humanity's past, their planet burning with the fire of global war. "This was us 75 years ago," General Chen said. "The Second World War. 60 million dead. Cities turned to ash. Entire peoples nearly erased from existence." The Empire's historical analysts had studied this conflict. It showed humanity at its most savage. Total war with no quarter given. Perfect evidence of their primitive brutality. But Chen continued, "This is what we learned from that darkness." The screen filled with scenes that confused every alien watching. Human soldiers sharing food with former enemies. Engineers rebuilding destroyed cities in nations they had bombed. Former battlefield foes working together to establish laws preventing future atrocities. "We learned that victory without honor is meaningless," Chen said. "That strength without mercy creates only more war. That the greatest conquest is turning an enemy into an ally." Zexthul's intelligence officer pulled up comparative data. "Sir, this makes no sense. After total victory, humans helped their defeated enemies rebuild. They gave up territory they had conquered. They established institutions to prevent their own future dominance." More images flowed across the screen. Humans who had been shooting at each other months before, now working side by side. Scientists from warring nations collaborating on projects to heal their ravaged world. Children playing in rubble while their parents planned a better future. Every war taught us something. General Chen continued. Every battle showed us new ways to break things, and new ways to build them better. The historical montage accelerated. Medieval knights who created codes of chivalry that protected the innocent, ancient warriors who spared civilian populations and honored truces, modern soldiers who risked their lives to save enemies they had been trying to kill hours before. But the most disturbing images came from humanity's recent conflicts. Human soldiers in foreign lands, fighting not for conquest, but to protect strangers. Warriors who died defending people who looked nothing like them, spoke different languages, worshipped different gods. We fight, Chen said. But we fight for something greater than victory. The screen showed a human medic crawling under enemy fire to reach a wounded soldier. An enemy soldier from the force that had been trying to kill him. We discovered something your empire has never learned, Chen continued. True strength isn't measured by how thoroughly you can destroy your enemies. It's measured by how completely you can transform them into friends. Zexthul felt his worldview cracking. The empire conquered through fear and overwhelming force. Defeated species either submitted or were eliminated. There was no third option. Yet these humans had fought wars more brutal than anything in Kethmar. History, then chosen to help their enemies rebuild. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, then created systems to prevent their use. They had perfected the art of war, then chose to perfect the art of peace. Your species has conquered 47 worlds, Chen said, and Zexthul realized she somehow knew his exact record. How many of those worlds fight for you willingly? How many would choose to stay in your empire if given the option to leave? The silence on the bridge answered her question. We want to show you something else, Chen said. Something that will help you understand what you're really choosing to fight. The transmission changed to show Earth's major cities at night. But instead of military installations, it highlighted something else entirely. Hospitals, schools, research centers, art, galleries, places where humans came together not to wage war, but to heal, learn, create, and grow. This is what we built between our wars, Chen said. This is what we've been fighting to protect. The screen went dark once more, but General Chen's final words echoed through the ship's corridors. Tomorrow, we'll show you what happens when you threaten it. For the first time in his career, Commander Zexthul wondered if he was making the right choice. The next morning brought humanity's true demonstration of power, not through weapons or threats, but through something far more disturbing to the Kethmar worldview. Every screen on Zexthul's flagship suddenly activated without authorization. His technicians scrambled at their controls, but the human transmission bypassed every security protocol as if their most advanced defenses didn't exist. Good morning, Commander Zexthul, General Chen said, and several bridge officers gasped at hearing their leader's name. I hope you slept well. We certainly didn't. The main screen split into dozens of smaller images. Each showed a different human facility, but not military bases. These were hospitals where alien refugees from other conquests received treatment. Research centers where human scientists studied Kethmar technology to find ways to heal rather than harm. Universities where human students learned alien languages and cultures. Surprised? Chen asked. You shouldn't be. We've been monitoring your empire for 3 years. Every ship movement, every communication, every species you've conquered. We know all 47 worlds you've taken. We know their names, their cultures, what you did to them. Zexthul's communication officer worked frantically to cut the transmission. Nothing responded. We also know about the resistance movements on those worlds, Chen continued. The ones your forces think they eliminated. They're still active, Commander. They've been waiting for the right moment, the right support, the right hope that someone might help them. New images appeared. Alien faces that Zexthul recognized from classified rebellion reports. Rebels who should have been dead, now healthy, and organized. They stood beside human advisors who were teaching them not just how to fight, but how to build the infrastructure for free societies. 3 years ago, when we first detected your empire's expansion, we had a choice, Chen said. We could prepare for war, or we could prepare for something better. The images shifted to show massive human industrial facilities. But instead of building weapons, they were constructing medical supplies, communication equipment, and construction tools, all designed for the unique biologies and needs of the 47 conquered species. We chose to prepare for liberation. Zexthul finally found his voice. Impossible. Our intelligence shows humans are primitive. You've barely left your own solar system. Chen smiled, a human expression that somehow conveyed both warmth and deadly intent. Commander, you're thinking like a conqueror. You see only military strength. But humans learned long ago that the greatest victories come from battles never fought. The screen showed a timeline that made Zexthul's blood freeze. While his empire had been expanding through brute force, humans had been reaching out differently. Not with warships, but with aid missions. Not with weapons, but with medicine and technology freely given. We've been in contact with civilizations across this galaxy for decades, Chen revealed. Not to conquer them, but to trade with them, learn from them, help them solve problems. When species flee from your empire, they don't disappear, Commander. They find us. The tactical implications hit Zexthul like a physical blow. If humans had allies throughout the galaxy, if they had been preparing for this confrontation for years, if they understood the Empire's weaknesses from studying 47 previous conquests. You're not just planning to resist our invasion, he said slowly. You're planning to liberate our entire empire. Now you're beginning to understand, Chen replied. But that's not the demonstration we wanted to show you today. The screen changed to show something that defied everything Zexthul thought he knew about warfare. Human ships, not the primitive craft his intelligence had reported, but vessels that incorporated technology from dozens of different species. Ships built not for conquest, but for rescue and reconstruction. And they were already on their way to the 47 conquered worlds. The real demonstration, Commander, is happening. Right now across your empire. Every supply line disrupted, every garrison surrounded, every resistance movement activated. All coordinated to begin at the exact moment you received our transmission. Warning signals began screaming across the bridge as reports flooded in. From across the empire, rebellions on every conquered world, supply ships disappearing, garrison forces cut off from reinforcement. But here's the part that should really concern you, Chen continued. We're not trying to destroy your forces. We're trying to capture them intact. Because we believe that even Kethmar soldiers, once they understand what they've been part of, will choose to help us build something better. The transmission ended with one final image. Kethmar soldiers, clearly prisoners, working alongside humans and members of the 47 liberated species to rebuild what the Empire had destroyed. In the stunned silence that followed, Zexthul realized that humanity hadn't just planned to defeat the Empire. They had planned to save it. Chaos erupted across the Kethmar flagship as reports flooded in from every corner of the Empire. On the bridge, officers shouted over each other while displays showed the collapse of a galactic dominion that had taken centuries to build. Sir, the garrison on Vextar Prime has surrendered without firing a shot. The supply depot at Nethgol is under siege by its own former slaves. We've lost contact with the entire Korvash sector. Zexthul stood amid the pandemonium, watching 47 conquests crumble in a single day. But what disturbed him most wasn't the military defeat. It was the method. Every report mentioned the same impossible detail. Kethmar soldiers weren't being killed. They were being captured, treated, for wounds, and then converted. Sir, his intelligence officer called out, we're receiving a new transmission from one of our own garrison commanders on Thylo 7. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Vextan, a veteran officer Zexthul had known for 30 years. But something was wrong with the image. Vextan wasn't in a prison cell or under obvious duress. He stood in what looked like a medical facility, surrounded by the very aliens he had been oppressing just days before. Zexthul, old friend, Vextan said, and his voice carried none of the defeat expected from a captured officer. I need to tell you what I've learned. Commander, report your status immediately. My status? Vextan's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. I'm free, Zexthul. For the first time in my military career, I'm truly free. Behind Vextan, Zexthul could see Kethmar soldiers working alongside their former prisoners. Not under guard, not under threat, but as willing partners in some incomprehensible project. They showed us something, Vextan continued. The humans and their allies. They showed us what we've been part of. The families we separated, the cultures we destroyed, the fear we spread across the galaxy. But more than that, they showed us what we could be part of instead. The camera panned across the facility. Kethmar medical officers were using their advanced knowledge to heal species they had previously helped conquer. Engineers were working with liberated slaves to rebuild infrastructure. Soldiers were teaching defensive tactics to protect against future invasions. They didn't defeat us, Zexthul. They liberated us. You've been brainwashed, Zexthul snapped, subjected to some form of human mind control. No. The voice came from behind him. Zexthul spun to find General Chen standing on his own bridge, apparently having materialized from thin air. His security officers reached for their weapons, but she raised empty hands. Your soldiers made their choices freely, Chen said, just as you're about to make yours. Impossible. This ship is secure. Commander, your ship has been secure for the last 6 hours. We've been aboard since your first officer's watch. We could have taken control at any time. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If humans could board a Kethmar flagship, undetected if they could disable security systems and override communications at will, then the Empire's technological superiority was an illusion. Your weapons? Zexthul demanded. We're not armed, Chen replied. We don't need to be. Violence would just prove that we're the same as the Empire you serve. We're here to offer you something the Empire never offered any of the species it conquered, which is a choice. Chen gestured, and the main screen displayed something that shook Zexthul to his core. It was Earth, but not as his surveillance had shown it. This image revealed the full scope of humanity's hidden civilization: orbital, habitats, asteroid mining operations, interstellar communication networks, defensive installations that could have annihilated his fleet before it ever reached the solar system. We could have destroyed your ships the moment you entered our space, Chen said. We could have eliminated your empire years ago if we'd chosen warfare over diplomacy. But we learned something from 10,000 years of fighting ourselves. The only victory worth winning is the one that creates no losers. The screen changed to show the 47 liberated worlds. But instead of the devastation Zexthul expected, he saw reconstruction on an impossible scale. Former enemies working together, cultures flourishing again, technologies being shared freely among species that had been isolated for generations. Your empire taught these species to fear each other, Chen continued. We're teaching them to trust again. Your empire told them they were weak alone. We're showing them they're stronger together. What do you want from us? Zexthul asked. We want you to help us finish what we started, Chen replied. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than any of us realized. There are threats coming that will require every species, every world, every individual working together to face. The Empire's strength, guided by wisdom instead of fear, could be the foundation of something magnificent. On the screen, Zexthul saw Kethmar soldiers teaching defensive strategies to former slaves. He saw human doctors working alongside Kethmar medics to heal wounds from centuries of oppression. He saw children of a dozen species playing together while their parents rebuilt civilization. This is your choice, Commander, Chen said. You can fight us and lose everything you've built. Or you can join us and help build something greater than anything the galaxy has ever seen. Zexthul looked around his bridge at officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. In their eyes, he saw the same questions that tormented him. What if they had been wrong about everything? The bridge of the Kethmar flagship fell into a silence deeper than the void between stars. Zexthul stared at the tactical displays showing the collapse of his empire, while General Chen waited patiently for his decision. Around him, officers who had spent their lives following orders now faced a choice no military manual had prepared them for. Sir, his communications officer whispered, we're receiving surrender confirmations from 17 more sectors. The rebellion is spreading faster than our ability to track it. But Zexthul barely heard him. His attention was fixed on a smaller display showing individual Kethmar soldiers on the liberated worlds. These weren't broken prisoners or defeated enemies. They stood straight, worked with purpose, and displayed something he'd never seen in 47 conquests: genuine contentment. How? He finally asked Chen. How did you turn our own people against us so completely? We didn't turn them against anything, Chen replied. We showed them what they were fighting for versus what they could be building toward. Every Kethmar soldier who's joined us made that choice freely, after seeing the full truth. What truth? Chen gestured to the main screen, which displayed a comprehensive analysis that made Zexthol's stomach drop. Resource expenditure graphs showing the Empire's unsustainable consumption. Population statistics revealing the slow extinction of conquered species. Economic models proving that the Empire's wealth came from stripping entire worlds bare. Your Empire is dying, Commander. It consumes more than it creates, destroys more than it preserves. Even if we hadn't intervened, it would have collapsed within 50 years. The mathematics are unavoidable. The data was irrefutable. The Empire's expansion had accelerated not from strength, but from desperate necessity. Each new conquest had been required to maintain the previous ones. It was a pyramid scheme on a galactic scale. But these projections, Chen continued, switching to new displays, show what becomes possible when species work together instead of exploiting each other. The new models were staggering. Resource sharing that eliminated scarcity. Technological collaboration that advanced every species faster than any could progress alone. Cultural exchange that created innovations none could have imagined in isolation. The choice isn't between victory and defeat, Chen said. It's between collapse and transformation. Zexthol's tactical officer stepped forward. Sir, with respect, the human is correct. I've run the calculations myself. Even if we defeat this rebellion, the Empire cannot sustain its current trajectory. One by one, other officers voiced their agreement. The ship's doctor reported on medical advances already being shared between humans and liberated Kethmar forces. The engineer marveled at technologies that solved problems plaguing the Empire for generations. The intelligence officer admitted that human information networks had exposed corruption and inefficiency throughout their command structure. You're asking us to abandon everything we've built, Zexthol said. No, Chen replied. We're asking you to build on what you've learned. The Kethmar Empire has organizational skills, military discipline, and technological innovations that the galaxy needs. But instead of using those gifts to conquer, imagine using them to protect. The screen displayed a new image that stopped every alien heart on the bridge. It showed the edge of the galaxy, where strange signals had been detected. Artificial constructs moving with purpose and malevolent intelligence. This is why we really need each other, Chen said. While your empire has been conquering individual worlds, something else has been watching our entire galaxy. Something that sees all of us, human, Kethmar, or any other species, as equally worthless. The implications hit Zexthol like a physical blow. If humanity had detected external threats while the Empire had been looking inward, if they had been preparing for conflicts that made galactic conquest look trivial. How long have you known? He asked. 3 years. About the same time we first detected your Empire's expansion. We realized then that we had two choices: spend our energy fighting each other, or unite to face what's coming. And you chose to save us. We chose to save everyone, Chen corrected. Because that's what humans do. We've spent 10,000 years learning that the only sustainable victory is one where everyone wins. Zexthol looked around his bridge one more time. His officers, his crew, the soldiers and commanders who had followed him through 47 conquests, they were all watching him, waiting for the decision that would define not just their futures, but the future of every species in the galaxy. General Chen, he said finally, I formally surrender the Kethmar Imperial Fleet to the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Chen smiled. Commander Zexthol, on behalf of humanity and our allies, I formally invite the Kethmar people to join us as equal partners in building something greater than any empire. As surrender confirmations flooded in from across the galaxy, Zexthol realized that for the first time in his military career, he had achieved a victory that would last forever, because he had learned the most important lesson humanity had to teach. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to stop fighting. 1 year later, Zexthol stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships from 49 different species dock at the galaxy's newest and most ambitious construction project. What had once been a Kethmar military shipyard now served as the headquarters for the Galactic Liberation Alliance, a coalition dedicated to the radical idea that different species could thrive together. Still hard to believe sometimes, General Chen said, joining him at the massive viewport. Zexthol's mandibles clicked in agreement. Below them, Kethmar engineers worked alongside human architects to design evacuation protocols for the Outer Rim colonies. Former Imperial soldiers trained beside liberation fighters to form defense forces that would protect rather than conquer. Children of dozens of species attended the same schools, learning languages and customs that had been forbidden under Imperial rule. The reports from the outer sensors concern me, Zexthul admitted. The external threat is larger than we initially calculated. I know, Chen replied, but look around you. A year ago, could you have imagined this level of cooperation? This rapid advancement in defensive technology? This willingness to sacrifice for strangers? She had a point. The construction of Harmony Station alone represented achievements that would have been impossible under the old system. Technologies that had been hoarded by the Empire were now shared freely, accelerating innovation beyond anything in recorded galactic history. Medical advances that had taken the Empire decades to develop were being improved and distributed in months. Status report, Commander? Chen asked, falling into their daily routine. 37 worlds have completed their defensive upgrades, Zexthul reported. Evacuation procedures are in place for the Outer Rim, and… He paused, still amazed by what he was about to say. Recruitment for the new defense fleet is actually ahead of schedule. We have volunteers from every liberated world. It was true. Despite having the option to return to their pre-conquest isolation, every species had chosen to remain part of the Alliance. More than that, they were contributing resources and personnel to defend worlds they had never seen, protecting species they had never met. The humans were right, Zexthul continued. Unity does create strength beyond the sum of individual parts. Through the viewport, he could see the newest arrivals, a convoy of ships from Earth carrying the last components for the Alliance's most ambitious project. Not a weapon, but something far more powerful. A communications network that would link every world in the galaxy, ensuring that no species would ever again face extinction in isolation. Commander, his former tactical officer called out. He now served as the Alliance's coordination specialist, a role that used his military precision for logistics instead of warfare. We're receiving the final transmission from the deep space monitoring stations. The main display activated, showing sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. The external threat was indeed massive, a fleet of ships that dwarfed anything the old Empire could have fielded. But the readings also showed something else. The alien constructs were still months away, giving the Alliance time to complete their preparations. Are we ready? Chen asked. Zexthul considered the question. A year ago, he would have calculated firepower, compared ship numbers, analyzed tactical advantages. Now, he looked at something more important. The faces around him, a former Kethmar officer working with a human engineer to solve power distribution problems. A species that had been enslaved for generations, now contributing their unique biology to develop better life support systems. Children playing in the station's recreation areas, while their parents built defenses that would protect them all. General, he said, we're not just ready. We're something the galaxy has never seen before. Which is? United. The external threat, whatever it was, had spent eons traveling between galaxies, conquering isolated civilizations that faced them alone. But this galaxy would be different. When the alien constructs arrived, they wouldn't find scattered, competing species ripe for conquest. They would find humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the knowledge that former enemies could become family. That diversity created strength, and that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't any weapon or technology. It was the choice to stand together. As if summoned by his thoughts, alarms began sounding throughout the station. But these weren't warnings of attack, they were calls to action. The deep space sensors had detected the external fleet's acceleration toward their galaxy. The real test was about to begin. But as Zexthul watched representatives from 49 species calmly take their positions, coordinate their responses, and prepare to defend not just their own worlds but each other's, he felt something he had never experienced during 47 conquests. Confidence. Not in superior firepower or tactical advantage, but in something far more reliable. The knowledge that when civilizations chose to build rather than destroy, to protect rather than conquer, to unite rather than divide. They became truly unstoppable. The external threat was about to learn what humans had taught the galaxy, that the species which chose peace wasn't weak. It was preparing for a war unlike anything the universe had ever seen. And this time, the good guys weren't just going to win. They were going to make sure that everyone, even their enemies, had the chance to choose a better path, because that's what humans do. And now, it's what the galaxy does too. Redefines.